This is the lecture for Ruben Binz's article, Algorithmic Accountability and Public Reason. So on page 550, there's this discussion of reflective equilibrium. So the article says, the precise content of these common principles is expected to emerge from a process of reflective equilibrium between equal citizens. The particular form of such a reflective equilibrium is the subject of much debate, blah, blah, blah. So what is this reflective equilibrium process that's being described? Well, reflective equilibrium is sort of a process that you engage in order to sort of sort out some thoughts that you have about something, or that a group of people can engage in to sort out some thoughts about something. One way to think about it is you start out with some possible principles. So let's say we're trying to sort out our thoughts about justice. We're trying to sort out like how should society be arranged. And we might have one principle that says, everybody should be equal. And we might have another principle that says, from each according to their ability to each according to their need. We might have another principle that says, people should be free to do what they want to do and stuff. So these are like big sort of principles that kind of structure our general thinking. So we have these big principles, and we also have sort of, the guy who invented this calls them like considered convictions, I think. And so there are some things that we believe are like pretty certain that they're true. So you might think like, so these are typically going to be about like specific cases or something. So you might have like a story where somebody is fired from their job because of their caste or something. And it's like, well, I'm 100% sure that that's absolutely unjust. Like it's wrong for that to happen. Or you might say like, you have a story where somebody earns some money in their job and then is taken from them or something. And you're like 100% sure that, that's objectionable and stuff. So you have all these sort of convictions about particular cases. And what you do in reflective equilibrium is that you sort of, put all these things together and try to work out a general theory that explains everything, that makes sense of all of your general principles, sort of fits all those together, and which makes sense of all of your considered convictions about particular cases. Because often these things conflict. So maybe the principles conflict with each other. So the first principle I mentioned was like, everybody should be equal. And another one was from each according to their ability to each according to their need. Well, look, if people have different abilities and people have different needs, then how can people be equal? So I don't know, maybe those two principles don't fit together very well. Maybe the principle everybody should be free to do what they want to do. It's not clear how to fit that in with everybody is equal, or blah, blah. So the principles maybe conflict. Some of the principles might conflict with the particular considered conviction. So the principle, look, people should be free to do what they want to do, conflicts with the conviction like it's wrong to fire someone because of their caste. Because look, if people want to do that, if people should be free to do whatever they want, they should be able to fire whoever they want. And so we have conflicts between principles and considered convictions. And so we try to work out a sort of general theory that fits everything together. And in order to do that, we may need to adjust some of the principles or even throw some of them out. We may need to throw out some of our considered convictions, like, oh, I was pretty sure this is how things should work. But, now that I realize I have these principles, and these principles seem like the best ones I've got, and they conflict with this considered conviction, maybe I'm going to give up this conviction. And so you have to sort of make everything fit together in some sort of coherent way. And you're trying to reach a point of what is called reflective equilibrium, where you've reflected on everything and you've kind of reached an equilibrium where things make as much sense as you can make them. So that's what the process of reflective equilibrium is. It's sort of trying to come up with a general theory that explains whatever you're trying to explain, that makes as much sense as it can about the sort of particular data that you have and the principles. And another sort of form of reflective equilibrium that you can think about is the way that science works. So in science, you have like various theories or various laws, and you're like, these are general principles about how gravity works, about how particles behave, about how light behaves and whatever. And then you have your particular considered convictions, which are observations that you've made. So I saw this apple fall, or I saw this ray of light reflected. And then what you try to do is try to eventually build an understanding of the world where all this stuff fits together. Now, in science, you might think, well, I'm not going to give up any of my observations. Like the observations are always going to stay. The principles are going to be what have to adjust. So maybe that's how it works. I don't know. This is a substantive debate in science or whatever. But like basically what you're trying to do in science is like fit everything together so that it makes sense. You don't want to have a theory that conflicts with some sort of observation that you've made. If there's a conflict there, one of them has to change or one of them has to go. So science is perhaps in some ways a process of reflective equilibrium too. And if you think about it, you can maybe see reflective equilibrium in various places in life. It's whenever we're trying to sort of explain things at some level, we're trying to come up with a general theory explaining everything. Potentially reflective equilibrium is a process that we use or the process that we use. There's a lot to say about it, but that's enough for you to understand what's being talked about in the article when the article mentions reflective equilibrium.